What you're looking at isn't actually a fruit. In fact, this humble object has been deceiving us for over 10,000 years. It's been worshipped by pharaohs, forbidden in gardens of paradise, used as currency, and holds one of nature's most bizarre pollination secrets. This is the fig, and its story is far stranger and more significant than you ever imagined. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the rich and fascinating history of one of humanity's oldest cultivated crops. From ancient Mesopotamia to your morning toast, the fig has shaped civilizations, inspired myths, and revolutionized agriculture. So let us peel back the layers of this mysterious fruit and discover why it deserves a place in the Hall of Fame of human history. Ancient origins. Our story begins over 11,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent, that arc of land stretching from modern-day Egypt through Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and into Iraq and Iran. This is where agriculture was born, where humans first transitioned from nomadic hunters to settled farmers. And the fig? It might have been the very first fruit we ever deliberately cultivated. In 2006, archaeologists made a stunning discovery in the lower Jordan Valley. They found 9 carbonized fig fruits and hundreds of fig druplets dating back to approximately 9400 BCE. That's over 11,000 years ago, predating the domestication of wheat, barley, and legumes by about 1,000 years. These weren't wild figs. The remains showed characteristics of a deliberate mutation that would have made them sterile in nature, meaning humans had to propagate them through cuttings. We were cloning figs before we even invented the wheel. The species we're talking about is Ficus carica, the common fig. Its wild ancestor still grows throughout the Mediterranean and Middle East. But somewhere in our prehistoric past, someone noticed a mutant tree producing sweeter, seedless fruits and decided to cultivate it. This simple act may represent humanity's first venture into genetic selection and agriculture. Figs in ancient civilizations. As civilizations rose, the fig rose with them. In ancient Egypt, figs weren't just food, they were sacred. Tomb paintings from 2500 BCE show workers harvesting figs, and the fruits themselves were placed in burial chambers to nourish the dead in the afterlife. The ancient Egyptians believed the sycamore fig tree was the tree of life, and the goddess Hathor was sometimes called Lady of the Sycamore. But it was the Greeks who truly celebrated the fig. The city of Athens held figs in such high regard that exporting the best quality figs was illegal. Those who reported illegal fig exporters were called sycophants, literally. Fig revealers, a word that evolved into our modern term for someone who tattles or ingratiates themselves to authority. The next time someone calls you a sycophant, remember you're being compared to an ancient Greek fig snitch. Greek athletes training for the Olympics consumed figs as a performance-enhancing food. The physician Galen wrote extensively about their nutritional benefits, and they were considered superior to most other fruits. Legend has it that figs were presented to Olympic victors as a symbol of honor alongside their olive wreaths. The Romans took their love of figs even further. Pliny the Elder catalogued 29 varieties in his Natural History, and figs appeared at nearly every Roman banquet. But here's where it gets legendary. According to Roman mythology, the twin founders of Rome, Romulus and Remus, were sheltered by a sacred fig tree, called the Ficus ruminalis, after being abandoned on the banks of the Tiber River. This tree became one of Rome's most venerated landmarks, and when it began to wither, Romans saw it as an omen of the empire's decline. Figs weren't just culturally significant. They were economically vital. Dried figs were used as currency in some regions, traded along the Silk Road, and served as a staple food for armies on the march. They were portable, nutritious, and wouldn't spoil, making them ideal for ancient commerce and conquest. Religious and mythological significance. Now let's talk about the fig's deep spiritual roots, because this fruit appears in more religious texts than almost any other plant. In the Hebrew Bible, the fig tree appears more than 50 times. Adam and Eve famously used fig leaves to cover themselves after eating the forbidden fruit, and some scholars actually argue that the forbidden fruit itself was a fig, not an apple. The apple association came much later in European art. In ancient Hebrew culture, sitting under one's own fig tree was a metaphor for peace, prosperity, and security, the ultimate symbol of the good life. In Buddhism, the Bodhi tree, under which Buddha achieved enlightenment, was a fig tree, specifically Ficus religiosa, the sacred fig. To this day, the Bodhi tree is one of Buddhism's most important symbols, and descendants of the original tree are worshipped throughout Asia. In Greek and Roman mythology, figs were associated with Dionysus, the god of wine and ecstasy, and with fertility rituals. The fig's shape and abundant seeds made it a natural symbol of prosperity and reproduction. At Roman weddings, figs were often included in ceremonies to bless the couple with many children. The Quran mentions figs specifically in Surah At-Tin, the fig, swearing by the fig and the olive as examples of Allah's perfect creation. Throughout Islamic culture, figs have been prized for their sweetness and medicinal properties. The pattern is clear. Across cultures, continents, and millennia, the fig has been revered as something more than mere sustenance. It has been a bridge between the earthly and the divine. The bizarre botany of figs now. Remember when I said a fig isn't actually a fruit? Let me blow your mind. What we call a fig is technically an inverted flower cluster called a syconium. When you bite into a fig, you're not eating fruit flesh, you're eating hundreds of tiny flowers turned inside out. Here's how it works. The fig is essentially a hollow ball with a small opening called the ostiole. The flowers bloom inside this chamber, invisible to the outside world. Those little crunchy bits you feel when eating a fig? Those aren't seeds exactly. They're tiny individual fruits called drupelets, each produced by a separate flower. But here's where it gets truly bizarre. Figs can't reproduce without a partner, the fig wasp. And we're talking about one of the most specific and intricate relationships in all of nature. Female fig wasps, barely a millimeter long, squeeze through that tiny opening in the fig. The journey is so tight that she often loses her wings and antennae in the process. Once inside, she lays her eggs in some of the flowers and pollinates others with pollen she carried from her birth fig. She dies inside the fig, never to see the outside world again. Her offspring develop, mate inside the fig, and then the males, who are blind and wingless, tunnel an exit hole before dying. The females emerge, collect pollen, and fly off to find a new fig and continue the cycle. Without the wasp, no fig seeds. Without the fig, no wasps. They've co-evolved for millions of years in a relationship so specific that each species of fig has its own dedicated wasp species. Now, good news if you're squeamish. Most commercial figs we eat today, like the brown turkey or black mission varieties, are parthenocarpic, meaning they develop without pollination and don't require wasps at all. But even in traditional figs, the wasp is broken down by enzymes becoming part of the fruit. Sorry, but you've probably eaten wasp, circle of life. Figs through the ages. As we move through history, figs never lost their prestige. Medieval monasteries throughout Europe cultivated fig trees in their gardens, both for sustenance and medicine. Figs were prescribed for everything from constipation to ulcers to infections. Modern science has actually validated some of these uses. Figs are packed with fiber, antioxidants, minerals like potassium and calcium, and have genuine health benefits. During the age of exploration, Spanish missionaries brought figs to the Americas. The California fig industry was born from trees planted at Catholic missions in the 1700s. Today, California produces nearly all of America's commercially grown figs, a direct legacy of those missionary plantings. In the modern era, figs have become a global commodity. Turkey is the world's leading producer, followed by Egypt, Algeria, Iran, and Morocco. Notice the pattern? The best figs still come from regions close to their ancient homeland. But figs now grow on every continent except Antarctica. Today's fig industry has evolved far beyond fresh and dried fruit. We have fig jam, fig vinegar, fig paste, fig and chocolate, fig and salads, and fig and oat cuisine. The ancient fruit has seamlessly adapted to modern tastes while maintaining its essential character. From the ruins of Jericho to your kitchen table, the fig has journeyed through 11,000 years of human civilization. It witnessed the birth of agriculture, fed pharaohs and emperors, inspired prophets and poets, and evolved one of nature's most peculiar partnerships. It was currency, medicine, and sacred symbol all at once. This humble, misunderstood fruit reminds us that the story of human civilization isn't just about kings and conquests. It's also about the plants we chose to carry with us to nurture and to weave into the fabric of our cultures. The fig connected the ancient world through trade routes, sustained armies, marked holy ground, and even gave us the word sycophant, so the next time you eat a fig, take a moment to appreciate that you're biting into living history, a taste that Cleopatra knew, that Buddha sat beneath, that Roman soldiers carried in their packs. You're participating in a relationship between humans and nature that's older than cities, older than writing, older than almost anything else we call civilization. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the fig, hit that like button and subscribe for more fascinating histories of everyday objects. What ancient food should we explore next? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, stay curious.